Welcome to the final part of this watercolour barn owl painting. And today what we're going to do is work on the rich colours and those intricate patterns on the barn owl's wings. So let's get the brushes wet and let me show you how to paint realistic birds in watercolour, and let's get started. Right, we're getting back to it now. This is nicely dried, as you can see. It's dried and it's gone a lot lighter in colour as well, which is exactly what we want. I've got a few marks here which I need to kind of blend out very carefully, because obviously it's near the white area. So I'm going to do that first, just kind of touch it with a little bit of water and little circle motions is all I'm using on there, just to lightly blend it as we go. Are you ready for this bit? We're going to start on all this lovely detail on the back, okay? Now the colour we've got within these marks, when you look at these little areas here, these are like little diamond shapes. So we've got white, and we've got like a dark spot, and we've got a white spot and a dark spot, and so on and so on and so on. So we're going to mix up a little bit of colour, and all it simply is a little bit of lamp black and burnt umber. So lamp black and burnt umber will give you this, okay, which is a browny black. That's simple. The consistency of this is probably a little bit like a loose cream, like a single cream. Alright. So what we're going to do first, we'll just get some of these marks reinforced around the neck, just by putting a few dots here and there. Go over the ones you've already made in the past if you can still see them on there, underneath that white. Just add a few, don't overdo it. Just so this will get rid of, because it looks quite grey and boring on there at the moment, so what I'm trying to do is get some colour in there now. I know all this lot looks quite complicated down here, but it's not as complicated as it looks, believe me, it's not. I've done a few barn owls in the past, and once you kind of do it in sections, you see how straightforward it can actually be. So into the browny blacky colour, so burnt umber, lamp black, we're going to start to put in some of the darker marks. So work on this side first, and we're looking at the shapes that we've got here. This is going to be white inside this piece. Okay, and a few more shapes as we go along. So keep thinking diamonds, or triangles in this case, actually more than diamonds, looking at the ones on here. So think triangles, the way that these are going. Some are diamond shapes, some are triangle shape. So again here, some are triangles, some are diamonds. And we've got another one there. So we're kind of putting these in as we go along. Still got some of the pencil marks here, so I can see where some of the darker ones go. This is just solely for the dark marks that we've got on there, okay? All the other areas around here, we've got a dot in. When you look at the reference photo, which I'm going to probably pop down there for you. Then these will be dotted in as we go along with little tiny dots. But for now, what we need to do is work out, again, map everything out again. You've got your pencil marks underneath. If for some reason the pencil marks have disappeared, don't worry, because if you've drawn this out using the tracing paper, using the method we did before, so we've got, just show you on here, so we've got these marks on the masking tape. So you can reposition your paper with your drawing on and redraw those marks on. Just make sure you get your marks in line on your paper. You know, so if you've got a mark on your paper here, make sure it's in line with the one on the masking tape. Okay, so we're going to get some more of these dark marks in, looking for these little triangles as we go along. Quite a lot in there, there's a load of little triangles in there. And the good thing about this area, you don't have to be so precise, you know, you don't have to be, you know, every mark's going to be the same. It doesn't have to be in this case. All we're trying to do is do something that looks very similar, if not, you know, it doesn't have to be spot on the same. So we got area here, you can see I've got my little pencil marks in there as well. I've got a few knocking about there as well. And a few more around here. I'm going to put another one down here, I think, actually. It's not on the screen, but I just think it evens it out a little bit. So do the same, your little squares with your arrows top and bottom. Miss a few arrows off here and there, and vary the width of these kind of shapes you're making and the angles, so they're all going the same way. these are kind of curving around in that kind of angle when you look at the photo. It's like a gradual curve as it comes around. What comes around goes around. Oh dear. Another one there. So what I want to do is kind of reinforce this area as I said earlier on. Okay, just kind of get a little bit darker, a little bit kind of so it goes underneath sort of thing. So what I'm going to use is a little bit of this burnt sienna. And I'm going to drop it into my yellow ochre. Okay, and just a little bit of burnt umber in there as well. So burnt sienna, yellow ochre and burnt umber is what you're looking at there. Okay, so work off that. And what this is going to do, we're going to start putting some more details into this area now. So bring this down. If we find it's too bright, we'll tone it down a little bit. And what we do with that, we just add a little bit more burnt umber to it. Just kind of tone it back. You tend to find that burnt sienna dries a little bit duller sometimes. Depends on the richness of the pigment, obviously, depends how thick you mix it. But it can dry much duller on occasion. So we're just going to kind of get this colour in. I'm trying to think about this underside area here, just what I'm looking at. So we'll add a little bit more to that shortly. And a few more around as we go. I think you got the bottom of the picture there, yep. So we're looking at this one here, that little split brush of mine I made. My crushed old brush, so again, use a very old brush to do this, okay? So what I would do with this, I dip it into the colour I'm using. And you tend to find it kind of clogs the bristles up, so just wipe it a couple of times. So you go it in, wipe it a couple of times or so, and then they all end up with spiky bits. So very spiky on there, which is what we want. So the idea behind this is that it then creates about 4 or 5 lines at once for the underlying detail. So I'm going to use this, I think, for a little bit. Saves time. But as I keep saying, you don't want to be using this as the final layer of detail because it's too uniform. The lines are too in one direction, if you know what I mean. That's a good group, by the way, that apparently. So yes, so just keep it going. Look at the shape that these go in. These feathers here go that way, okay? And then these here kind of come down and then go that way. It's the more you look at the photo, the more that you see. So I'm kind of very gradually, barely touching the paper again, just kind of grazing the paper with this brush. Just so I can get some detail on there. It's amazing how quickly this kind of fills up with a bit of detail. Just adding a bit of water to my mix because it's a little bit too thick. Because it's not spreading. Okay, so keep going. Trying to see where the lines go, that's the important part. If you can see where they go on the paper. I mean, I'm looking at this as well because we've got different parts along the wings here. When you look at the photo, then you can see these sections here which kind of appear. Right then, the next bit, now it's nice and dry, is to work on all the lovely dark bits on there as well. So let's work on that next. Bearing in mind some of these marks are brown, some of them are black, and some of them are, well, in between the two. So you have to look at each one and think, that's more black, that's more brown as we go along, okay? But initially what I'm going to do, so we've got the colours here, I'm going to work, so you've got your burnt umber, and you've got your lamp black, and that's the two mixed together there, okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a little bit more lamp black to that so it's nearly black. So it's more on the kind of blacky side of brown. The consistency is like a single cream. Okay, so let's get stuck into this area here then.
Also, don't forget to click on that subscribe button down below and don't forget that bell icon as well, just so you'll never miss one of my YouTube videos.
And all I'm going to do is start dabbing, so little tap marks. So think if you know about pointillism or anything like that, pointillism, which is a picture made up of dots, sort of thing. That's what we're doing with this. Little tiny dots tapped together all the way down. I'm going to tap down the side of this as well. It's quite dark, but it's like it's not black, this area, it's more kind of a mid-tone grey kind of colour. So this will dry a little bit lighter and just kind of dab in the outline. I'm trying to draw it, trying to tap it on the outline there, because we're going to get some white areas on the edge of that as we go. So I'm just tapping as we go. This is going to create that shape which we're after. We don't want to go all the way up, okay? You might want to put 1 or 2 up there just to get a bit of texture in there. Not too much though, don't overdo it. There's going to be a lot of white dots on this side because it goes around a curve. The dots will look closer together. So when we go into the white later on, we can add that in. Okay, I'll just put 1 or 2 around there. So not many, barely touching it as you can see, barely making a mark. Okay, so tap, 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 tap. That's what we're doing. Lots of tapping, but you're thinking, you're looking where it's lighter and darker. So let's say, for example, we've come down this side here. Okay, which is about there. So this is going to mark there. That's one of those little middle of the 2 triangles. And these are little dots all the way through. We're not a paint again. And then it gets lighter as it comes along here. In other words, come off the not as many dots, okay? The more dots you put together, the darker it's going to get. So fewer dots in certain places, just a few there, and then it starts to get darker again. So we're going to get closer together with the dots again as we come along. Bit of a dotty thing to do. Good practice though. It is good practice using your brushes doing this way as well, doing all the dots. So again, I'm looking for spaces here. We've got a gap there, a slight gap coming down here. And these started to wander over this side a little bit as well. So we've got a few. I'm going to come higher now. See, that one's darkening that one there, which it will get. So I'm looking to see where the gaps are, barely touching the paper. I'm not preloading my brush yet. There's a few around here. Just tap, tap, tap. That's all I'm doing. Unless I keep tapping and there's no paint in my brush, would you notice a difference? What do you mean no? Okay, so this is going to carry on all the way down now. So I'm going to tap a line to where I want to go. So tap, 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 tap. So I know all this area here has got to be filled in. We've got a little kind of centre of one of those 2 triangles going on here. I just noticed. So we're going to pop one of those in. We can put a bonus one in here. I don't know if it's on the original, but I'm going to pop one in anyway, just so we've got a little variation going on there as well. And then put your little dots in between. So what we need to do is do this all over the body. Yeah, I know it's time consuming, but the overall effect again will be worth it. But all I do is stress to you, do those little dot lines so you can work out where things go. So when we're looking around here, we know that this is quite light. So we've got the large one, looking at where these marks are, got that one there. Then we've got a dotty line going all the way along, up to here. There's my colour. So a little dotty line all the way up to there, and down a bit, up a bit, down a bit, up a bit, down a bit. So we know we've got a dotted line going around that area. This is fairly clearish around here, we just need to reinforce it a little bit. And we know as well that we've got another dotted line kind of working its way around here towards that one. But don't draw it in, just dot them in as I said before, so you can see where things go. And to there. Let's say that one comes to there. Then we've got another dotty line which starts around here. So I drawn that then, didn't I? By mistake. And then that comes down and kind of loops like a little arc. Let's have a look on the screen here, and we've got a little bit more there and a bit more there, and then there's a bit of a gap, and then we've got a little bit more here. This is like a dividing feather, so we've got a bit more there and a bit more there, run out of paint, and a bit more around there as well. Okay, so now we've got our guidelines which we're going to be working within. Then if you want to, you can look at where this mark is here, and to this side we've got a bit of a clearance, a bit of a clear area as well within that area there. So as long as we know that some of the sections, get a bit more paint on the brush so you can see what I'm doing here. This area here is a bit clearer, so you know not to go into that area just yet. We can put a few in there so we can see it graduates from dark to light. Okay, and then a few more, there's a bit more of a gap around there as well. Alright, so we've got some gaps, got your guidelines, now we just need to put all the detail in between. Alright, sounds easy. It is, it's just dotting. Just lightly tapping the paper, that's all we're doing all the time. Barely touching the paper, should I say. I've got a carry down here yet, but I'm just going to go back up here while I just look at this area. It's quite light up here, but again, we'll be adding more white as we go along. So that kind of blends away. This is going to be the white area in there when we get the white paint out. And just dot it in, barely touching the paper, run out of paint again as we go along. Okay, so we'll continue that all the way over the body now as we go along. And if you want to as well, you can reinforce some of the kind of dark areas, because these are quite browny, blacky colours. But you want to, obviously some of these are going to be quite dark, especially on this side. These are just about black on this side as we go through. But you can see that's starting to show and starting to form already, so the effect is starting to come together. So let's carry on with that and we'll see how we get on. So these little triangle areas, it's worth kind of tapping around those triangles, just kind of vary it a little bit. Alright, and if we need a little black area in there, we can just darken it, get a little bit of black in the paint if you wanted to. Just darken that area down and tap it in. Just to blend it together, leaving that little triangle, because that's going to be white at the end of it, isn't it? So, if you remember. Strengthen some of these areas here as well now. I think that's what I want to do. Because a lot of this is covered, there's little patches here and there. There's a patch here which I've already outlined, so that patch there is outlined ready for us. You can see why I've done that now, because you tend to lose your way otherwise. So I'm going to keep tapping and we will fill most of this area in here as we go along. So this is more black than brown now. Okay. So add a little bit more lamp black into the burnt umber. So I'm going to tap this in towards the white area now, just a little bit as we go along. You can take as long as you want to on this kind of process. You know, there's no rush trying to get all this detail on. Just take your time with it. Remember, we're going to bring some strands into this area here as well. Just want to kind of rough it out where it's going to go. So plenty of little kind of marks around here as well as we go. So I'll start on this side, and again, barely touching the paper as we go. Barely touching the paper to there. Okay. So there we go. Right, so that'll give you some ideas so far. I'm doing all the little blacky areas on there. That's it. Leave that as it is. Right, okay. Let it dry and we're back in a minute.
Hi, my name is Paul Hopkinson. So what I do, I show you my technique on how to paint wildlife in watercolour. We go through a variety of subjects from dogs, cats, insects and even botanical subjects as well. And I'll guide you through this right from the beginning all the way through to the end for those final brushstrokes. You'll also find that with most of my videos you also get the outline drawing and that reference photograph as well. Every month we produce a PDF version, so a typed out version with photographs of that monthly main video. You'll get the PDFs for the months that you are a member. Now this is a very in-depth document with lots and lots of pages of information and instruction, as well as obviously the photographs as well. Now another benefit is that you get access as well to my private Facebook group. Now the good thing about my videos is that they'll be here 24/7. So you can watch them 6 months down the line, 2 years down the line, it doesn't really matter. They'll always be there. You can stop, you can play, you can rewind, you can pause as many times as you want to do so. So that will give us some ideas on what you'll gain from being a member on my Patreon channel.
Right then, the next stage is to do the white on the wings. So let's try and get all these little marks on there, and we better make a start. So what you need to do, get some watercolour white, and I'm going to use my usual kind of SAA opaque white. Remember, there's a variety of different manufacturers you can choose from, so I'm not saying that this is the be all and end all, it's just the one that I use, okay? I'm going to drop a little bit of water in there using my pipette or pipette. Never know how to pronounce that one, you know. Roll a little bit of that water into the white paint. I'm going to leave some white paint rich, untouched, if you know what I mean. So it's not softened or weakened down. And I want this to be probably like a creamy consistency. Not runny, I don't want it dripping off the brush. So quite creamy, so it's not thick, but it's in between thick and runny, if you know what I mean. So the first thing we need to do is look at some of these marks as well. We're going to bring some of these lines into this part of the body. So just bring these down a little bit more, just around that area first. Don't need to do too many of them, you don't want to completely cover all this area up, so just bring a few down, just so we've got a nice kind of graduation between the two areas. Just joins them together that little bit more, you know. Okay, right, so let's have a look at some of these marks we've got to put on. You don't have to slave away with these, you can just put them wherever you want within reason. So we're going to go for the larger marks first, which are usually, remember the little triangles, which are on some of these areas here. So we've got a little triangle there. There's one, tiny one above it. There's one below that one as well. And we've got a triangle here. So I'm just going to get some more paint. Remember, the thicker the paint, the whiter it will stand out. But you don't want it so thick that you can't spread the paint, okay? If you find the white is too much, or you've gone too wide on it, you can go over with the top of that once it's dry with a little bit of black paint or brownie black as you go along. So I'm just kind of putting in these little tiny triangles at the moment and seeing where they go. Work on the big ones to begin with, and then we'll do all the little dots afterwards, okay? So we've got one there. There isn't one on the top of that one I've just seen. So that's that one there. Just move my screen on my tablet so I can see what I'm doing here. And just a little few triangles. Another one there. I'm just going to do this back section first with the triangles, and I'm going to go in with the smaller dots. So that's nearly dry, that paint there, so that's why it's kind of breaking away on the paper. Okay, and a little bit more. Okay, well, a bit too much on that. Just tap it with your finger if you do that, okay. Then we've got another one of these quite large ones. Looks like it's got a roof on it. And then it's got a pavement underneath. There you go. Okay, there's quite another large one there, but that's what it is. That's what we'll paint. Mark in there. Then back into your dotting again. So we've got a white area there, we've got a white area there, and here, and here, and here. There's a little triangle on that one. But say you don't have to be too precise with it, you know, just so you can see where things are. So again, just putting these little highlights in before we come around with the white dots, just so we know where things go. Now we've got the white dots underneath, we can do this just to bring some over, so it just joins the two areas together a bit more, you know. That's what we're trying to achieve through this. Just so follow the same line that these are going. Okay, then curl them over as they come across onto the wing. So that's all I want to do with this bit. And the same there. As I say, it just brings them together, joins them together a little bit more. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Which then means that all this detail we just put on will still show through a little bit underneath. As I say, I don't want to completely cover this. If it's too light, which I think it is in places there, I'm going to go back over with a little bit of dark. I'll just wash the brush out, I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so back into your darky browny black mix, if you need to do this, and just kind of tap over some of these areas just to kind of knock some of this white back a little bit. It's a bit too much, I think, I've put on there, to be honest with you. Still keeping this white fairly watery at the moment. I don't want it too bright, so there's quite a bit of water in there. The little arrowheads, we'll add those in afterwards. Once we've done this one little section, we'll pop them in. I keep looking backward and forward at the photo because you don't want to end up putting too much too soon in places. Okay, I'm going to put a few kind of dotted around here as well, so it kind of adds a bit more texture to this area. I want it to do. Okay, it's amazing the effect this can have. You can see it's really kind of coming alive now with this. That's what we're trying to achieve. So all the effort from all these layers and all this time, you can see does pay off in the long run, so it's well worth doing. Now I'm going to go for a slightly thicker mix of the white. So this is like a creamy consistency at the moment, and we need to put in these little kind of arrowheads now. Not all of the sections have got an arrowhead both ends. Some have, some haven't. Some have got little dots. So do vary it. You don't have to be precise, as I keep saying, but do vary them a little bit if you can, just to show that they are there. And a little one there. And there's one down the side blue on that one. So, okay, I'm going to do another one on there for now. Okay, right on there. Right, so that's those bits. And then we'll just come back down to here. Arrowhead there, and the one there. Look at your photograph and you can see roughly where they are. So you don't have to be too precise. Just so you know you've got them in roughly the right place. For your own peace of mind. The one down there. Just get a few in here and there. Okay, we're not done down there yet, so that's okay. And the one there, and I think there's one little one there. A little one there. A little one there. So we're not far from there now, as we can see. So let's get some more fine dots in. This is quite a watery wash again. And working our way around. This is the speed I would normally kind of go with something like this. So this is watery. So I'm going to show you my usual speed of painting now. Going fairly slow to kind of show you how I would do this, but it's time to show you how I normally do it. So all I'm doing, I keep looking back and forward at the photograph. I'm just not just putting random dots all the time. I'm trying to see if it's lighter in places or darker in places or places where there aren't any white dots. So it's worth keep checking back and forward to your reference photo. This is still that weaker version, just a little bit now, it's still quite weak at the moment. I want these arrowheads to be whiter, you see that, because they are on the photo. So when you look at the photograph itself, you see that these little arrowheads are quite white. There's probably a proper name for those, I know, but I call them arrowheads. Right, okay, so we're into the thicker white again, and I just want to put the suggestion of arrowheads in this one. It's not quite as much on that top one there. And again, there, another one there. Just put a little white mark on that one. And I don't want each one being perfect in shape. I want them to be misshapen, and because they're not going to be anyway, are they? They're going to be all over the shop. Some of these. Just reinforce that one. Now this is quite a watery version of this white, so I'm just going to bring the white back into shot again. So it's quite watery, as you can see in there. It's very kind of loose, it runs, and it's a bit like water really, literally water. And that's what I'm going to use because I want this to dry fairly faint. Okay, so we'll do the same process again as we've done all over the body with the white, all over the wings with the white. So I'll tap this white in and work on one kind of section of feather at a time here. So as you can see, I'm just working on this little bit here. Oh, somebody asked about the masking tape I'm using for this board. So all this stuff here. This is just a standard decorator's masking tape, which I use. I just quite like the blue, that's all. Don't know why, I just do. Probably the standard masking tape might be better because I'll see my little reference marks better on that. But I quite like the blue. And I do try and take some of the tack off on my clothing, just 2 or 3 times before I put it onto the paper, just to help it prevent taking the shine off the paper, if you know what I mean, and tearing the paper when we take it off. Right, so again, that's one section, just a few more little drops in there. I'm going to start on this one. Just take some paint off that brush. It's a bit too much on there, I think. Tap it with your finger if it's a little bit too much. It does work. These sort of blend together, these sections, a little bit, so I'm going to put a few dots in between. Remember, it's not that bright. These are fairly faint, which is why it's a very watery wash of watercolour white, which obviously we're using here. Just tap them in slowly. Keep looking at your photo, and they tend to come up to about there. That one comes down to about there. Just so we've got some idea roughly on how the kind of shape they've got on there. So a bit more paint. So a little bit more in there. If we have to go brighter, we can do, but I think I'd rather go lighter than brighter, if that's the right way of putting it, before we need to go brighter. We can always tone a colour down, especially when it's white. Then we've got another section around here. Okay. Right, just double check, make sure there's not anything which should be on there. I'm going to put a few marks here and there as well, just to kind of break it up a little bit on here. It's a little bit too flat in places on there, so just a few odd marks as if it's catching some light.
So there you go, how to paint a barn owl in watercolour. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, so please leave me a comment down below and let me know how you got on with this video. I'd also be interested whether or not you want more full-length video tutorials here for you on YouTube. If you've not done so already, why don't you have a go at the Kestrel video lesson that's already on here. I'll see you there.